Welcome to the Mind Vine podcast, where we challenge the stigma associated with mental illness through conversations about a variety of issues impacting mental health. Here we bring you news, views, and interviews that intrigue, educate, and celebrate recovery. Leading us on this journey are the hosts of the Mind Vine podcast, Daryl Mathers and Chris Bovey.
Welcome to the Mind Vine podcast. My name is Daryl Mathers. I'm flying solo on this special edition of the Mind Vine podcast series. We're calling this the Protective Mind or Protecting Mind series, as it relates specifically to a campaign that we're embarking on at Ontario Shores Centre for Mental Health Sciences, along with the Ontario Shores Foundation. And we've done similar campaigns in the past. This one's a little bit, unique. It's a fundraising and awareness campaign, and we are fortunate to have 10 individuals sharing their story, being part of digital ads that have a connection with mental health, that played a role in kind of the front lines of the pandemic. As we kind of look ahead to what life might be like in a post-pandemic world. And we know the demand for mental health services is great, and we anticipate it even being greater in the future. And the pandemic is certainly going to play a larger role in seeing those numbers increase as people deal with a multitude of factors, which could have been job loss, added stress in the environment, relationship stress, all sorts of different things. And we were fortunate when in the summer we were looking for participants to share their story, that we had people volunteer, answer kind of a call on social media. And one of our participants was right in our own backyard. She works at Ontario Shores. I'm going to say her name, and I'm going to say it right. It's Rachel Boutilier. She works in environmental services, and she joins us now. Hi, Rachel.
Hey.
How did I do with the name?
You did perfect. I love it. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. So thank you so much, for participating in this podcast and being part of the campaign. As I mentioned, you work in environmental services here in Ontario Shores, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But while your relationship with Ontario Shores in terms of a working relationship is detailed in the campaign, that's not why you're participating. Tell us a little bit about your initial connection to mental health.
So I personally have mental health issues. I got diagnosed in probably 2010, 2007. I don't know, something like that. I can't remember the exact time, but I got diagnosed borderline personality disorder. I grew up with a brother who is schizophrenic. I have a daughter who's got massive depression and anxiety. So mental health is a big part of my life and something that I battle with daily. And, I'm trying to do my best to help others and show them that, you can make it through whatever life kind of throws at you.
What's really fascinating about mental health, and I guess it's not unlike other conditions, other physical health conditions, but it seems to be a more unique for mental health, is what works for somebody with your mental health issue may not work.
It doesn't work for everybody, yeah.
Yeah, and you have a unique experience. You are at least somewhat unique in the fact that medication hasn't been a real factor in your recovery, has it?
No, I did try. I went through all the avenues. Doctors prescribed this and that, and the last time they prescribed something, it went the opposite end, which can happen with medication. And I went off the deep end, and with my 6-month-old at home with me, I tried to commit suicide. I had no idea, wasn't coherent. I didn't really know what was going on. It really wasn't something that I wanted to do. It's just the way the medication messed around with my head. And so, once I sort of leveled out and had discussions with my husband, it was like, I can't keep going up and down like this. This isn't working for me. It's not working for my children. It's scary. And I said, I got to find a better way. Medication's not it for me. So I found I started doing fitness things, which is a big jump out of my bubble. Like I was very used to staying home, being in bed, and not talking to anybody. Like my social anxiety is like way up there. So I went to the gym, I jumped out of my bubble, started doing some of the fitness stuff and joined some classes. And slowly I came out of my bubble a bit. It started feeling better, and that was what was working for me. So fitness generally tends to be what helps alleviate when I go up and down a lot.
As you were going through your recovery, you eventually re-entered the workforce or started to think about working. And was there something about what you'd experienced and what we do at Ontario Shores that like drew you to it, or was it something just coincidence?
The work world is hard when you're in recovery, and it depends on what your illness is, because I went through a lot of jobs. There's a lot of jobs I cannot do. And whether it's stigma or the illness itself, I went through a lot. So at some points it was like, I didn't even think I was going to be able to work. And cleaning became a thing at some point during the recovery. And it was nice because it was in a place where I was by myself cleaning and doing things, and I had no stress. Ontario Shores came up and about, and it was a little bit of outside my bubble because I knew I had to be around people. And, I met with my bosses, and I said, like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, realistically, like, I am horrible with people. Like, I try, but my social anxiety, my fear of everything just sometimes takes over. I don't know if I can do this, but I want to, because the people in this facility are the people that I want to make differences with. And I want them to see that someone like me can do it, so they can do it.
So I guess that I'm assuming that made, kind of transition a little easier, because you mentioned in a previous conversation, like you're in a place where people are coming and going and people are staying, our inpatients, but we do have a number of outpatients. Like people are entering the facility who may have a similar or somebody that you can relate to in some fashion, right?
Yeah. And so, and that's the great thing about what we do. Yeah, we, clean and disinfect and do all that stuff, but we are lucky enough to be able to have conversations with the clients in the facility. And sometimes you might find something and you have a commonality with, or like something similar to someone who's struggling, and you can say something and absolutely change their day.
So you hinted at, talked about your work a little bit. When the pandemic hit in March, and somebody that, you talked about social anxiety, and different issues that that you have to manage on a daily basis. What was it like for you just coming to work during that period? Was it difficult? Was it what, I guess, like, what was it like for you at that point?
So the pandemic for me, people sort of make fun of me for it, but I'm like, I can't pay attention to the news. I can't pay attention to the numbers because I overthink everything to the point of like, I will not sleep. I will not survive properly if I pay attention to, so I stay in my bubble. So going to work was actually really good for me because I would go see the same people every day and I knew I was okay. So I had it a little bit probably different than a lot of people. So I got to stay in my bubble, and that was my good place.
The actual work changed a little bit while you were still disinfecting and cleaning.
The work changed a little bit, yeah.
But there were significant changes, if not to the work you were doing, maybe how often and how you had to do it. Can you describe like what it was like for you just doing your job on March 10th or 11th, and then doing it after March 12th when they announced the pandemic?
It's I don't know. I think about it too. It's to this day, it's so strange what the pandemic has done, and like the realization and perspective it puts on things. Like from what we were doing beforehand to what we're doing now, like essentially we're making sure everybody stays safe and healthy and is alive. Like we're making sure COVID does not come into the facility, and knock on wood, we've done that so far. But it's like, it's a lot of pressure at the same time because you don't want to miss things. You want to make sure everybody stays safe. And so we're constantly wiping stuff down. So I was working the isolation unit that we had for the 3 or 4 months that we had it. And constantly, anytime anybody used a bathroom, you'd have to clean it. You're like constantly in the full PPE, and like patients couldn't leave their rooms and go anywhere. Like, it's been tough, like not easy, but we're trying to keep everybody safe. So definitely different than before.
You mentioned before that
keeping people safe, but in a different way.
Yeah, we certainly and I guess it's the elimination of time. Like, you would normally wait a couple hours to clean that bathroom, and now you're doing it, instantly, and redeploying people. And it just made me think. You mentioned that how proud you were of your team, as they throughout the work they've done.
They've been amazing. Like, protocols change so frequently, and it's so tedious and tough, and they've just rocked it.
Do you feel like this kind of shined a light on the people at Ontario Shores a little bit? Like, do you feel a little bit more appreciated by people in the unit or patients, or what is kind of what has this done for kind of in that sense?
I think before COVID, everybody was really like a good team, but I feel like this has really brought everybody even closer together, because we're all doing this together. We're all, a lot of us don't leave the facility other than to go home to our families and come back to work. So it's like, I feel like this has made us closer as a team and a unit and even with our patients. Like, it's just, again, perspective, right?
So looking at the campaign now, so you're dealing with this really stressful situation, the pandemic, doing your job, doing it really well, wearing full PPE, and now you're going to be on billboards, potentially ads. Your story is going to be all over the internet. How does that make you feel?
Definitely nervous, but I really want people to see what our team does. And again, and for me, like, what you can do through mental illness. Like, it's, I think it's very important. I think our team does very important work, and they don't get enough recognition. And so I hope that this will do that.
You just made me think of something too. I know one of the things we struggle with on Ontario Shores is, for our patients, specifically, is being able to find meaningful work, right? So a lot of you kind of touched on it a little earlier, that because of the complexities of mental illness, you may not be able to do something you used to do, right? Like, we have that in a lot of cases where somebody may be a teacher, and now they're looking to re-enter the workforce, and teaching doesn't, it just doesn't jive with the demands of their illness, and so they have to look at a different direction or try something different. But like, for you, meaningful work after your journey through mental illness and recovery, what has it meant to you to have something like the job you do every day with the people that you do it with?
It's everything to me. And like, I probably drive my bosses nuts, because I thank them every day for, like, well, not every day, but like enough that it's like, I'm grateful that they hired me. Like, I get to save lives. I get to talk to people. I get to help people. And even if in a day I don't really get to see anybody, because sometimes on the shift that I'm on right now, that doesn't happen, but I know no matter what, I'm making a difference. And that to me is everything. Like, the fact that we're doing this podcast right now is due to other people in the facility having faith in me and wanting to help me with my mental advocacy.
Speaking of advocacy, when the campaign launches, which it will be in October, and you'll see it in November as well, what do you hope comes out of it?
I seriously hope that people will see that you can make it through anything. It's a matter of perspective and how hard you're willing to fight for it. You just got to get out of your bubble and work.
I like how bubble's now the word we all use all the time.
It's the bubble, I know.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
It's the comfort zone, the bubble.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then now we've been spending our lives trying to get out of our bubble, and now we're being forced in it.
Now we're in a bubble. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much for sharing your story in the campaign, for taking time to do do this. You're really inspiring. And I think you're an example of why we need to work with employers, why we need to work with people. To give people opportunities. We know the